Hello, everyone. This is Erwin Cito bringing you the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. And what a strange time it is to be alive. one, one day I'll stop saying these are historical times that we live in, but I'll say it again, these are historical times we live in. I've spoken to a couple of real estate investors who have lost significant amounts of money in alternative cryptocurrency coins. Try saying that 3 times fast. I actually find it difficult to reconcile how one invests in cash flowing real estate. Sorry. Cash flowing real estate is incredibly defensive and offensive investment strategy. What I can't reconcile is how these same people then place money into something so speculative, like alternative cryptocurrency coins. I can't even name them all. Uh, you know, I don't even know what to call them. But these alternative coins, one example would be Luna, which is making headlines these days. It fell from $82 to 2 cents in a matter of hours, I think overnight. Uh, you know, 48 hours ago, I didn't know what Luna was. Actually, no, I did. Because a friend of mine told me what a great investment it was about a month ago. And they're one of the people that told me that they lost all their entire investment in that investment. I was actually speaking to someone at lunch who had bought 17,000 Luna coins. They bought them for fractions of a cent because they're trying to buy the dip. And then the coin shot up to 5 cents, and they got too busy. They didn't take their exit. They could have had a 600% return in just minutes, but. No, it's since crapped out even more. But it's an investment, so it's not like it went negative and they owe any money for it. So yeah, so a friend of mine gambled away $200. So that's nothing like what other friends have shared with me. People have lost thousands of dollars on this coin, and then the coin has actually brought down the entire cryptocurrency market for those who aren't familiar or not tracking. So yeah, cryptos are bad. Me personally, I've only been focused on mainly Bitcoin related stocks. Generally my exposure is very, very small compared to my net worth, especially compared to my real estate portfolio. So yeah, and I believe in the business case for Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's just I don't like the valuations. I don't like the prices. I don't like who's investing in these things, and it seems to be too many speculators. And when there's too much speculative buying, then that price gets pumped up a little bit and it feels a little bit artificial. So I'm gonna be patient. I'm actually worried that the cryptocurrency market may bring down the stock market with it. So we'll see. I'm being patient right now and just sitting on a bit of cash, waiting for opportunity. Hopefully, I can free up more cash too. So I'm being patient. But we are pushing along our refinancing process to free up some more capital to take advantages in real estate, stocks, and crypto. That's just me, though. I'm not an expert at all in anything, and this is not financial advice. So far in 2022, cash has been the winning asset. If you actually look at the US dollar, I believe it's like one of the best. It's one of the best performing asset classes in terms of this year alone. But I don't think it'll stay that way for long. It's actually beating gold, I believe. I believe the US dollar is beating gold. What a world. With all this inflation going on, the US dollar is beating gold. The central banks in both Canada and US have been very successful in cooling respective housing markets and stock markets. For any Canadian, go have a look at Shopify, see how that stock's doing. My crystal ball is no better than yours, but from the sources that I trust and follow, we're pretty consistent that we believe there's going to be at least 2 more interest rate increases this year. Some predict more. I think that may be it. Because the pain will be too great for too many Canadians, especially those who over leveraged, and we may be running into one of the best opportunities to get into any quality asset, whether it's stock, crypto, real estate, and it may be the best opportunity for I don't know how long, because not only we're trying to time the market, we're also trying to time when the central banks start printing money again. So holding cash pretty soon, I would guess maybe this year, but maybe by the end of the year, will not be something you want to be holding, as I expect the central banks to be increasing monetary policy again, like they always have. There's only one thing that's like in the investment world. I think there's only one thing guaranteed, is that the central banks will print money. They're not doing it right now. They're actually easing. They're easing right now, but I don't see a world where they don't increase the money supply that's out there. Today reminds me a lot of 2017. So for those who haven't been around for a while, and I know many of you haven't, I see on my social media lots of real estate coaches who got into the market within the last 2 years. But anyways, when the housing market corrected back in 2017, Cherry and I picked up 2 houses, and we paid in the 400s to 500s for them. If you paid in the 500s, they were low 500s, and at the time there were no competing offers. I actually wrote conditional offers that were accepted, and we've since converted both into duplexes, each recently appraised for $1 million, and we fully plan on buying this dip as well as soon as we have our refinancing done of a couple of our properties. The nice part of the market today is there's actually turnkey duplexes available for sale. My team has several of them available for sale they're coming up available for sale, which was not a luxury back in 2017. The properties I bought, I had to do the conversions myself. By doing the conversions myself, I handed them off to my power teams of designers, architects, handy people, contractors, all those sorts of things, electricians. Cherry and I are too busy today. Back then, I guess I was still being a little ambitious. I want to make every single dollar. Cherry and I are too busy with our lives and prefer turnkey investing these days, collecting rent and cash flowing as soon as possible, so we can go back to our busy lives, including watching our kids in sports, since they're growing up so fast. Like I said, when I was a bit younger, even 2017, 5 years ago, I think the pandemic aged me a lot. But anyways, when I was younger and I was chasing every single dollar out there, I would have been doing BRRRRs the whole way. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, whatever, repeat. Or in just general, I'd buy beaten up properties. But our businesses provide us enough cash flow, and we're having fun running our businesses. Hence, we have no immediate plans for retirement. So everyone needs to choose their own investment strategy suited to their goals. Those who want to quit their day jobs and have more will have to be more active than Cherry and I. We're not the model to follow for everyone. And that's the truth about real estate investing. And one of the other truths is I have several multimillionaire clients who weren't multimillionaires when I met them. They are now multimillionaires who invest in real estate as a side hustle. They still like their day jobs. They don't want to be in real estate full time. They just collect 3 to 5 or 8 houses, and they're perfectly happy. If you're new to investing, whichever path you choose, strategy you choose, please start with quality education and have some expert eyes review your deals. This week, I learned of an investor who bought a property off a well-known wholesaler, and so that's a private deal, no realtors involved, and that wholesaler did not disclose that there was a legal marijuana grow up in the basement. Legal or not, that's not something I want in my property. An honest omission, well, if it was a realtor, you could sue the pants off of them, and they'd probably lose their license. At least at minimum be fined a significant amount of money. Maybe an honest omission, but at the end of the day, buyer beware. Verify everything. Do your own due diligence. Trust. I have trust issues because I've seen so many terrible things happen, and that's part of capitalism. People will do what's in their best interest. So for those of you listeners out there, you are my community. I want you to see you safe, investing safely. So do your own due diligence. Have a healthy amount of mistrust in anyone who's trying to make money off of you. FYI, this would not have slipped by my coaches. We're not dummies, nor would it slip by anyone on my team. So, we know perfectly well what investment properties are good investments that we would put our own money into, and that's what we advise our clients to do as well. A few of other investors asked me, actually just last night I was hosting a free training for our own clients, and I had 2 investors ask me how do they scale their portfolios. Now, there's always context needed. Both happen to own pre-construction condos that they plan to own and plan on having negative cash flow. It's just the nature of that investment. For the properties that they bought them downtown Toronto-ish, somewhere within Toronto City of Toronto proper. They're likely quality deals in terms of a condo, but I tell them they're not, because your property isn't cash flow. And when the bank looks at your negative $600 or $600 cash flow, and compared to when the bank looks at my property that positive cash flows, who do you think they're going to lend more money to? Which portfolio do you think they prefer? So my goal is to own multiple properties. Therefore, I need to do strategies that positive cash flow. The only way a negative cash flow portfolio will scale is if rents go up or you make more money personally. And this is Canada. Let's not forget the lessons of Rich Dad Poor Dad. The more money you make, the more tax you pay. Gotta love it. In summary, I'm able to get mortgages still versus the pre-construction condo buyer. It'll be definitely different path for them to be able to scale. On to this week's show. We have an incredible story from my old friend Todor Yordanov, one of the first serious real estate investors I met back in 2006 or 7, and he's done quite well for himself, just like most investors have, who've invested like 15 something years. He's done well, and he's progressed to helping others. He's done so well that he's able to afford to go and help Ukrainian refugees at the border, where Ukraine borders with Bulgaria. Todor is from Bulgaria originally. He shares how his partner Natalia would cry at night when the war broke out, and then one morning they dropped everything and they got on the plane to go to the border and help. Todor is here today to share how he became a successful investor and real estate broker. He used to BRRRR properties, own townhouses in Hamilton, for example, and now his focus is pre-construction condo. He's gone from opposite ends of investing. As a type, actually when I was checking the links for Todor's social media, I found out he's on his way back to the Ukrainian border to help more refugees. He's going back. Even though he has admitted PTSD. What a guy. Todor's GoFundMe for the charity, the Ukrainian Humanitarian Emergency Relief Fund. The links are in the show notes. It's a GoFundMe, and he's a good guy. He's doing a lot more than I am for Ukrainian refugees. Please enjoy the show. Hello, Todor. What's keeping you busy these days?
Hey, Erwin. Good to see you. Good to be with you.
I'm just happy to see that you, like, when you first walked in the door, I had to check you for bullet holes to make sure you were whole. And
I'm perfectly fine, man. I'm perfectly fine. We've seen things that most people are not going to see in their lifetimes, and it's good for them. Coming back from the border of Ukraine and spending 5 weeks there with mothers and kids that are fleeing from the war was definitely an experience that we've been back for exactly 8 days now today. And it's an experience that definitely, now that I think about it, it's changed me. And, it's changed, pretty much the fabric of me. It brought a lot of knowledge, experience, things that we've seen, things that I still think about. Our work is not finished because we still have volunteers back in Varna, Bulgaria, helping with the women and the kids and whatever they need, medicine, mostly, some of them food, shelter. So we're still fundraising money. We're still doing work. It's just that Natalia and I came here to do what we do, sell real estate. But my mind is constantly on the need of those women and kids that are still displaced all over Europe. Varna, Bulgaria is like a very, very small number of people compared to Poland compared to Romania, Moldova, other countries.
So I'll speak on behalf of the average Canadian. Is, when the war started, I had some very poor. So actually, first I'll speak for myself. I had some very poor emotional responses to when the war started. I wanted some bad things to happen to Putin and Russian soldiers. It was just an emotional response to myself. Once I calmed down and thought about what I could do, I made a donation to Red Cross.
And thank you so much for your donation to us. And
I made a private donation to you as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
What I did is like, this is I can't say I know how big the problem is, but I have an idea how big the damage bill is gonna be, and just a drop in the bucket. It really felt like I should be doing more, but I have to resign myself. I got what I have here, and I have to move on. Versus you, you decide to do something about it.
Yeah, so when the war started, like a little bit of backdrop. I'm originally from Bulgaria, from the coastal city of Varna. From Varna to Odessa, Ukraine, it's about 200 kilometers across the Black Sea. So direct 200 kilometers. Like we're very, very close. Natalia, my fiancée Natalia, she's from Ukraine originally. We both live and work in Toronto.
Right. Sorry, what year did she come over?
So Natalia came over when she was 13. And she's only been back to Ukraine once, when she was in her early 20s. I go back to Bulgaria every summer. And so she always wanted to go back to Ukraine. And last year we wanted to go back to Ukraine, but it was COVID. It was kind of like a bit of unsafe to cross borders and go to different countries. Ukraine at that time had like a really bad breakout of COVID, and people were saying, it's like, don't be ridiculous, like don't go. So we stayed in Varna. And so when the war started, Natalia, like most Ukrainians, they just couldn't stop crying for, days. So on the third day, I remember when I was, going to bed, and the last thing that entered my mind before I fell asleep was like, we gotta go. Like we have to go to Varna, where all of these refugees are coming now, and see what we can be helpful with. I woke up that morning and I looked at Natalia. We didn't even have coffee yet, and I says like, I think we should go. And she says like, yeah, let's go. So I bought the tickets on the spot, and we were on the plane that night. And 5 weeks in the country, we spent quite a bit of our own money, and then friends like you started donating to the campaign as well. And we were every day we were going to the refugee centers, to the crisis centers, and seeing what they need. Water, food, bed sheets, blankets, space heaters because it was still cold. All kinds of stuff that people needed in order for them to be warm and fed and have a decent accommodation. So we were buying all of that, and at the same time we were driving to the Romanian-Ukraine border all the time to see them arriving and to pick some of them up with us and to arrange for transportation as well. Because at the very, very beginning when we arrived, everything was not disorganized, but everything was run by volunteers. It was all people like us that just jumped in, right. And they're like, I'm here, what can I help with? Like there was no government, no organization, no support, no nothing, no financing. So it was pretty much until the very end, it was mostly run by volunteers and mostly paid by money donated.
Private donations.
So private donations, yeah. So I'm like super glad that we did. I rediscovered that spark inside of me. When something like that happens, it's like you just have to go. You have to jump. Like you can't really think about it. In many areas of life, it's like you either do it or you don't do it, right? And I respect both. right? Like you said, you donated, and it's now time to move on to your life and to what you do. And I totally respect that. For me, was I decided that I'm gonna go there and I'm going to do something. I'm gonna try to do something more. And when I say more, the most one of the most devastating things in this kind of volunteer work is when you wake up in the morning after you've been exhausted after a month and after so much money spent, and you look at yourself and it's like you've done nothing. It's like the impact is so tiny and so little in the grand scheme of things. It's like you feel like, how can I do more? And then you realize that you're not a superhero. Like you cannot heal everybody, and you cannot help everybody, and you cannot, there's no way that you can have all of the money in the world so you can make an impact for everybody. And you're just making a tiny little impact here and a tiny little impact there, and that's the human limitations.
Yeah. Well, Todor, you inspired me. I know it's not much to say, but you inspired me that you stood up and took action. Does Natalia have family in Ukraine?
Her father and her mother and her siblings are here, and everybody else is in Ukraine.
Oh God!
So all of the aunts and uncles and cousins,
Are they staying?
everybody's in Ukraine. They're staying. Yeah, they're older people.
Any of them fighting?
So one of the people that we picked up from the airport is her cousin's daughter. She is 23, and we picked her up, and she basically took a bus to the border from Lviv. Young woman, very capable, traveled the world, has master degrees in communication, and she wants to have a better life for herself. But the moment things improve in Ukraine, she's going to go back. And so her father is in the army. Her brother is in the army as well.
Oh, good Lord.
Both of them are pretty much every man who is capable of fighting between the ages of 18 and 60 in Ukraine. You cannot leave. If you're a man between 18 and 60, you cannot leave. And all of them are general mobilization. So some of them are fighting, some of them are being trained, and some of them are on a notice, depending on where you live. So anybody can be on a front line at any time. Yeah, it's really, really, I have no words to describe, because this is now so close to home, right? So close to me, so close to Bulgaria, but so close to me as a person. And it's happening in Europe with, I don't know if people realize how big Ukraine actually is. Ukraine it's the biggest European country by landmass, 45 million people, very, very rich in natural resources, black soil, growing a lot of food for Europe. So this is happening in Europe. It's war, bombs, tanks, Molotov cocktails. It's just, in the 21st century to experience something like that, especially, take me with my lifestyle and what we do and how we live here in Canada, in Toronto, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're in a completely different world of war and despair. And like these women that we met, and a lot of them is like with their little kids, they're all running scared, and then 2 days later, one of them, the husband, you can't reach the husband anymore, and then a day later somebody tells you, well, he was killed. It's just devastating. Sorry, this is it's not a upbeat fun story for a real estate podcast
I'll give a warning.
show, but this is what my life has kind of like shifted in a very big way in the last month and a half, 2 months.
So we know each other through real estate. You're actually the first, how do you say it? I guess first real estate investor I met. I'm sure I met other people.
Wow.
No, I'm sure I met other people along the way, but it was never how that relationship started. You know.
Oh wow. Okay.
And we probably never even actually had an in-depth conversation about real estate. Actually, I don't even know how I ended up at your meetup. Back in we were discussing before we were recording what year it was, and we're not absolutely sure, but it could have been 2006 or 2007. Good time to get in.
Yes.
But I met you at Tim Hortons. I think you organized the meetup. I think this is back in the day when email distribution lists
we're just starting, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really just like you put everyone's email in the to field, like, hey, who wants to meet up?
Right.
And I'm not sure what happened, but it only ended up being yourself, my now ex-wife, and I.
Yes.
And we started talking about real estate. And then that led to you were already a RAIN member at that point?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, but yes, because I already had purchased townhomes in Hamilton.
Nice.
So I must have been a RAIN member at that time, yeah, for sure.
What year did you join?
I honestly don't remember.
Oh.
I don't remember. It must have been 2005, 2006.
Okay.
But
I remember because I was
remember.
counting when I deserved my 10-year award, so I know exactly what year I joined. I don't know how else to say it, but without your real estate, you wouldn't have been able to go.
Not at all.
Without your career, without your
not at all.
Your investments.
So like even actually when we made that decision, and I turned to Natalia and I says like let's record a little video of us making this decision and basically telling the people that we're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
This was March 2nd. So it was like 4 or 5 days after the war started, and from that moment, and not only from that moment, but from every moment, because of real estate, investments, because of business mentality that came after real estate investing. Because I was working for a company, like you were working for a company, paycheck. Yeah. Security,
jobs, yeah.
Good jobs, great jobs, great company, great advancement opportunities. Like you move up, make more money. You go to work, like you get your paid vacations, like whatever, all of these good things. But then when I stepped out of that world into the world of real estate investing, first while I was still working, but then selling real estate as an agent, you become a business person, and that is like a completely different mindset and a completely different life that you live.
Yeah.
A life where you take all of the risks, but then you also take all of the rewards.
Yeah.
And then you have all of the freedoms, but at the same time you have all of the responsibilities.
Yeah.
So that realization was not because of what we decided to do on March 2nd, but that realization was, way time before that, when I can, take 3 months off in the summer and go back home to my hometown and spend time with relatives, and not think about it. Many people will say, well, but how can you take, 3 months off from your business? And my answer is like, look, it may not look like I work a lot, but up here, I work 24/7, 7 days a week. So when the summer comes and I decide to go and take off 3 months, like I've already worked 3 years in a normal 9-to-5 job. So it's just like the pay is different.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot more responsibility. You take some freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
So when on March 2nd we decided to go, I realized that we're fortunate because of what we do and what we've done to be able to make this drastic change of course and say, like, I'm not going to worry about working right now, and I'm not going to worry about bringing an X number of income this month. I'm just going to go and help, and I'm just going to go and fully commit to helping because I can, and because of, if I don't do it, then who's gonna do it? It comes with, the responsibility comes also with the freedom. You can do it, then why don't you? You have to have an answer to that question. And again, like whatever that answer is, like I'm totally fine with anybody else's.
Yeah.
I'm not putting responsibility or blame or asking people to do more. No, like have an answer, and that is your answer, and it's like totally okay. My answer is like my work, the needs of my clients right now. Sorry if you're listening, but way in the back seat. I gotta do this.
Yeah, I'm sure they can appreciate.
That's it.
Yeah. And on the far end of the spectrum, I follow a gentleman on Twitter who is a trained Canadian medic. So he's in Ukraine.
He's on the front line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's trained with weapons, so he probably is. Yeah. Dangerous.
That is.
Ultimate sacrifice, leaving behind. And he's got 3 kids at home.
My like the Second World War. this is just the fun part, but also real part. A second day of war, I turned to Natalia and I says like, you know what? Like I want to go and join the army. And she goes like, are you insane? I said, no, I'm not insane. Like I'm trained. I've trained for this. Like this is what I was made to do. Because I was in the army back in the day when I was growing up.
Excuse me, what year?
85.
Right.
I got out of the army in 1985. Got in 85. Got out at the end of 87. So I was in the army for 2.5-3 years.
Okay, so you're more qualified than I. Okay.
Yeah, and she says like, no, you're insane. And then I thought about it. It says like, I'm 56. I'm not 20 anymore.
Yeah,
so
and it's a fucking superpower over there on the other side.
Yeah, plus real bullets, real blood. Probably not.
Yeah.
Not right now. So we decided to do something else. But I totally sympathize, and I totally get it when people from Canada and from all over the world like are flying into Ukraine and joining the actual army.
All the power to them.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe in freedom of choice, so.
Correct. Well, and it's like you have to decide, like, this is my fight, this is not my fight, right? That means totally...
Yeah. I'd probably be a liability.
Totally...
No one would want to be in my unit.
Oh, you'll be surprised.
All right. So, Todor, you mentioned that you started investing in townhouses in Hamilton, was it?
Yeah. That was... actually, my first investment was a townhouse, row house on Berkeley and Parliament in downtown Toronto.
Oh, okay.
That is where I started back in 1995.
Oh, good time to get started.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had that unit for about a year, and I decided that is definitely not getting me rich. It's not getting me rich quickly.
Okay, hang on. What'd you pay for?
And I paid, I don't know, 120, 110, 95 maybe, somewhere around there.
Somewhere between 95 to 1.
Somewhere around, yeah, exactly. That's where, yes.
Okay.
What's the down? I know. I remember where the down payment came from. Came from my credit card. So I bought that on my credit card.
Okay, if folks don't understand that this is not financial advice, I don't know what we'll tell them it is.
Right.
What was it, new construction? Or
No. An older building that was sitting empty. It was part of 6 townhouse row houses, very, very old. Like one of the first, one of the old buildings in Toronto.
It was like 18 something build then?
Correct.
Oh, so well over 100 years.
Correct.
Okay, you bought it on a credit card. Okay.
I bought it in 1995. My son was just a baby. That's how I remember. And I had tenants, from hell, and I had good tenants, and then tenant from hell again, and did some renovations again on my credit card. And then after a year of, income expenses, paying off credit cards, and, going on an extra vacation, because now we are rich property owners, so why not, go on a nice big vacation. and seeing that actually we're not making any money from this in 1 year, I got discouraged and I said, well, this is not working, and sold it. Probably made a little bit of money. Ironically, this was probably about 6 months before the market started taking off.
And
it
the
hasn't
year's
stopped,
pretty good.
hasn't stopped
95
until now.
Yeah,
But I sold it just before the market started taking off. I decided like real
Yeah.
estate is not good. It's not working.
Right, because 95 is probably on the way up after the 1989 crash.
Yeah.
And I think people need to remember that too.
Probably
like-
made a little bit of money, like probably, I don't know, 5K, 10K, like whatever.
You want to guess what it's worth today?
It doesn't even exist anymore.
Developer got
few years after I sold it, somebody bought all 6 and demolished them, and it's sitting like as a parking lot since.
it was better use as a parking lot.
On the corner of, yeah, it's big land banking, right? So somebody bought
That's
the land.
hilarious. Someone wanted a parking lot over having 6 tenants.
Correct. So it's like right on Berkeley and Parliament.
Can you blame the investor for wanting a parking lot over having 6 tenants?
But you know what? Like this leads to it's a good example for another. People are saying it's like, why are condos so expensive? Well, condos are expensive because the only people that are able to build condos are people that bought land 30, 40, 50 years ago, and that land was sitting as parking lots.
Yeah.
And now you're putting up a building. Like, try to buy land and build today. You can't.
You're paying through the
So
nose.
this is how. So like a condo building life cycle, from the moment it starts to the moment it's finished, is really 30, 40 years in some cases.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. It doesn't start from the moment you give your deposits to buy a condo and 4 years later you have a unit. No, it started so many years prior to that.
Mm-hmm. So actually, before we were recording, we talked about townhouse versus condo, because you have pretty decent experience in both areas.
Townhouses, student rentals, condos, yes.
And you had a number of townhouses, am I right?
True.
In
True.
Well, so eventually, wait. So we're talking about 95, and then you exited in 96 or 97.
96, 97, and then for 7, 8 years I didn't do anything because I was basically, like, when you think about 95, 96, that is just before the internet. Like, we didn't have computers back in those days. We didn't have internet before those days. The only thing that you can get on real estate is possibly you go to one of those bookstores and buy 1 or 2 books on real estate. That's it. Like, this is how limited the information was back in those days.
Versus overload
clubs,
today.
There were no clubs. There were no
Podcasts.
meetings, podcasts. Like, you couldn't really get information.
Yeah.
So,
I'm guessing you didn't have a mentor either.
No.
Coach,
Like, you didn't know
nothing.
anybody, right? Like, you basically, your real estate agent tells you, it's like, oh, I think this is a good idea. Why don't you buy it? And it's like, okay, how much can I charge for this? How much can I charge for that unit? And how much is the basics are still the same. It's just that the information that is so easily available now was not there back in those days. So for 7, 8 years, I was thinking, it's like, this real estate thing doesn't work. It's just stupid, and I want to be out of this.
Is that parking lot still there?
If I was, I probably would have made the same mistakes. But nowadays, everybody tells you, like, real estate is not a quick game.
No.
Like, you can make a lot of money by buying and selling quickly. Could, but then you have to look for those opportunities.
Yeah.
But when you buy a house that is going to appreciate, then you better be in it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
More than
10 years, 15 years, like whatever the case is, right? So I just didn't have the knowledge of the basics even.
Right. That sucks.
So for 7, 8 years, like, I didn't do anything, and then I joined Rain, and then Rain basically got me thinking about educating myself and meeting other people, and what Don Campbell was saying is, like, it should be easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not simple, but it should be easy. It's like
It's easier with education, though.
You have to set it up in a way that you
Yeah.
don't really think about it too much, and you eliminate the pain.
Yeah, less mistakes means
Less
less pain.
mistakes is less pain, right? And just do it as a business. So when you start thinking about investing as a business, then you look at opportunities in a different way, and also you adjust your expectations. So you don't have the expectations like, oh, I bought a real estate property and now I'm just gonna walk tall and proud. Am I like a millionaire now, right? Like, no, it doesn't work that way. It takes like long time, and you go through ups and downs emotionally, mentally, and so it changes you, right? Like you need to change in order to meet the future that you are projecting for yourself.
Definitely have to be patient.
Yeah,
I think it's missing from a lot of places, a lot of people. Often, a lot of HGTV was terrible for that. You can do a flip in an hour, watching an hour TV show.
Yeah,
right. I like HGTV, so but I think they unintentionally, some people walked away with unrealistic expectations. But when I remember early days, Don Campbell would teach us, run your numbers on 3% appreciation.
That's right.
Right, because 3% appreciation works out to 15% return, assuming your down payment's 20%.
That's right.
Right, and like, we're gonna beat that.
And everything else is cherry on the top.
Yeah, everything else is. Then we had no
like
idea.
in our market, this cherry is like humongous.
Yeah, it's humongous.
But in world real estate, if you look at some European countries, and I don't know, like don't really have experience anywhere else, but they don't have the appreciations that we have. Ireland, England, so 3-4%, 2% appreciation, 0% appreciation for years. Is quite normal. So, you train like an athlete, right? Like real estate and any business, like you have to change in order to get the results that you don't have today. If you want bigger results, you have to change who you are, how you think, what you're capable of. Like you can't otherwise, like you're gonna get what you get.
I think it's lost along the way somewhere. Like if you want to win at anything, you're gonna have to show up prepared, right?
That's right.
The nice thing about real estate is there's plenty for everybody, in my opinion. And like you were saying, well, back then there wasn't much to consume in terms of quality education. Today it's like you have to be good at choosing what is good education because there's so much out there.
Right.
And
if you're being strategic about it, it's I'm totally guilty of what I'm gonna say. But I think we all humans, we complain. It's like, how come I have this and I don't have that, and so and so has this, and I want to get that, and I'm like, I want to be like Elon Musk. Well, nothing is stopping me to be like Elon Musk. Is the only person that is stopping me is me. It's like I don't think like him. I don't have his education. I don't have his abilities. It's like
I believe it's photographic memory too.
Right.
And it seems like he's a speed reader.
Let's just like, okay, no, I want to buy another $1 million worth of properties, but it's like too expensive right now, and the prices are this, but then people are still doing deals. The fact that you are not in the deal making group is because you didn't invite yourself there. And you didn't invite yourself there because you didn't see the opportunity. And you didn't see the opportunities because you're lacking something. Figure out what you're lacking and get it. And then you're going to be in the group that is making $1 million deal. It's just that simple.
I'll start off. I think the first step is to have an open mind. Because I'm sure you run into this as well. Well, someone will tell you debt is bad.
Yeah.
Right? So like right there is like, oh, okay. You obviously know everything. So how rich are you?
Right. No, I the more years pass and the more years I'm in this business, the more I realize how little I actually know about real estate. Real estate is like huge. There's like so many different property types, and like then you talk about like Toronto, Ontario, Canada, world. There's like real estate opportunities all over the world that we don't even know.
I'll even take us back out from there, and also I'm spending more time these days on economics and history, because I'm interested in what drives asset values.
Right.
So that's a humongous conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
But even in that, like you have one of the big drivers is emotional. Oh, I like to own a piece of paradise in Aruba, or you know, our friend Mike is calling me from Thailand. He moved to Thailand, and he's like,
which Mike? Sorry,
Mike Krastev.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He lives in Thailand now. Yeah, he's in Thailand. August of last year.
Good for him.
He bought a hostel on the beach,
what city?
Koh Samui is the island.
Oh my God!
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it properly.
Koh Samui.
Koh Samui. And the city, I don't know. But he bought this hostel on the beach. He has a little bit of a restaurant and nightlife stage scene where he's DJing music, and he's living he's great, you know.
Does he have an Instagram or something? I need to follow him.
He is. So he calls me up and he goes like, oh, you know, we have to start the real estate company here, and you know, we're gonna be selling so many properties here for sale.
Yeah.
I'm like, Mike, you know, what you know, who are you going to sell to? He goes like, oh, Canadians are buying, Americans are buying, Russians are buying. I'm like, Mike, okay, let's get serious now. How many Canadians are buying versus how many Americans versus how many Russians? He goes like, oh wow, you're right, like it's mostly Russians. I'm like, yes, that was before the war.
Right. Well, just geography, they're way closer.
Exactly. And I'm like, how many Canadians do I know that are actually talking to me about buying something in Thailand? Zero.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to
start
something different that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, on the other side of the coin, I may be missing the greatest opportunity of my lifetime because I don't see the opportunity. Because I don't know anything about Thailand. I don't know anything about real estate in Thailand. I don't know anything about vacation properties, you know, on the islands.
Yeah, you can't even say the name of the city.
So we're always blindsided in some areas.
Opportunities come in.
Exactly.
They come all the time.
Stick to what you know. Get better at what you know and what's working. And then if you can expand later on, that's fantastic.
Right. So, talking about learning lessons, I remember a couple of years ago we were talking about. I wish I just bought new construction condos in Toronto.
Yeah. It
was a conversation somewhere around that, because at the time you still own a couple of these.
Correct.
Tougher. Actually, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. Explain your experience working with these townhouses in Hamilton.
So the townhouses, they were about 115, 125 to buy. Cheap,
really inexpensive.
Mortgages were very easy to get with 5% or less. Some people were actually pushing it and getting them for nothing, for 0% down payment. And
the good old days.
You know, the good old days. So really, with $25,000, $30,000 on your credit cards, you could be buying 5 or 6 of those townhomes in Hamilton, and then they needed some renovation, paint, carpet, this and that, and then you put tenants in Hamilton. For the most part, in my experience, were tough tenants, difficult, not paying rents, and all kinds of issues. Maybe because I was not that good as a property manager, but it is what it is. Water under the bridge. And after a couple of years of doing that, I decided that this is too much work. I again discovered student rentals in St. Catharines by an accident. I got a student rental. I absolutely loved it. Loved the experience with dealing with the students, and loved the cash flow. Because each house in in St. Catharines at the time was paying me anywhere between $800 to $1,000 in cash flow
Per month. Per month.
per month.
Yeah.
So when you have like 3 or 4 of those, like you really think that, you made it. But 2-3 years go by, and again, like you start replacing roofs, you get like basements that are leaking. Things change with Brock University was building purpose-built student residences that changed the market. So I got out of Hamilton because I found more cash flow in St. Catharines, and then I decided to get out of St. Catharines because I discovered pre-construction condos. And
But you always knew they were there.
no, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, okay.
Like I had no idea. Actually, I was at the a real estate event I hosted by this magazine. I can't remember the name of it.
Canadian Real Estate Magazine?
Correct. That's it.
Oh, Crew Magazine. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I was just about to leave on day 1 or day 2, and I see this guy sitting behind a desk with promoting condos, but he had like a little plaque promoting student rental financing for student rentals. And because I was in student rentals, that piqued my attention. So I went and met with Jerry, and Jerry told me about this guy in Kitchener who's a mortgage agent who has a way of getting better financing for student rentals. So we talked about that, and then I just out of politeness before I left, I says like, oh, so what about this? Like, what do you do? So he's the one that introduced me into pre-construction condos in that world. So I met up with him after that, and that was the day when I basically decided, okay, I'm done with student rentals. Now I'm gonna do this.
So why the pivot? Because there's
The pivot was that
when it's like there's this whole community that's pursuing what you had.
Yes.
A whole whack of cash flow.
Right.
But that wasn't that's. You didn't want it.
I'm always trying to I guess like my whole life I've always been trying to find the most efficient way to go from point A to point B.
And more cash flow does not always mean more efficient.
No. More cash flow is great.
Yeah.
But you still have the responsibilities, and you still have the tenants, and you still have the risk of having an empty house. You still have the risk of something breaking in the middle of the night, and you have to drive to Hamilton or St. Catharines and replacing the roofs and replacing this, and then every 6, 7, 8 months you have the turnover, new students, and you still
it's an active investment.
It is an active investment, like, because you never know that if this perfect student is going to leave the room the way they found it, like, now do you have to repaint it? Repainting a room is not an easy task, because
hurts a lot of cash flow.
Like, it's either you have to do it, which means like a day of your time, or you have to find somebody else to do it. Like, it's not an act, it's not a passive, it's a very active investment. So I'm always trying to make money easier. How can we make money easier? And pre-construction condo is exactly that, because all you have to do is you come in, sign a contract, put your deposit, and then for 4 years you have an asset that is appreciating while it's being built, and then you have no tenant. So it's almost like weird, because you have an investment but nobody calls you and you don't have to do any work for 4 years, and then you get the keys, and then once you get the keys, you have to decide, am I going to move into this unit? Am I going to rent it? Am I going to assign it? Am I going to sell it? Am I going to keep it for 1 year or for 2 years after I close on it? You have to make these decisions. But basically, if you take a typical condo investment is, let's say, 7 years, 4 years is a construction phase. 75% of the time, you do absolutely nothing. No work is required, but the asset is appreciating. And then if you decide to hold it a little bit longer, which I recommend, 25% of the life of that investment, you have 1 or 2 tenants, and they're usually professional tenants downtime. Professionals.
They're professional jobs.
Professionals, and you don't hear from them. Their checks cash, and life's good.
Yeah. For the listener who doesn't have context, Share with us your experience renting out to a Hamilton townhouse condo tenant versus renting your Toronto condo.
It's night and day.
We're all equal,
I mean,
Todor.
I don't want to be judgmental, but I am judgmental. We all judgmental people.
Hey, I don't think that's fair.
This is a real estate show, so
if it was a job interview, we are
you
not
have
all
to-
equal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're judging this candidate versus that candidate. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, this is
And you're
what we
trusting
do.
them with the several $100,000 asset.
Yeah. So
In my opinion, that's more important than a job interview.
the downtown tenant is condo tenant is
Toronto.
usually Toronto
Yeah.
is usually a young person with great education, great job, making good money. They don't cook at home.
Really?
They don't cook at home. Like it's very, very typical to have a tenant in a brand new condo, and then they move out 1 or 2 years later. The labels and the manual are still in the oven. So, that's how they are.
A friend of mine.
They take out, out. They don't cook at home. So there's and they pretty much work at home, sit on the couch, watch TV, sleep, or go out with friends. So there is a lot less wear and tear on the unit. And
less than a student rental?
but that also depends on what type of student rental you have. As you know, some of the cheaper student rentals are beat up because you have to lower your standards in order to get tenants. But you have like a prime. If you have a prime student rental, then you get the top of the crop.
All right. Are you saying? Okay. Are you talking about in like a Toronto condo as well for student rental, or
No, I don't have experience with Toronto condos. No.
Okay. Yeah. For students, you mean?
For students, no.
Because I hear about it. I think it's in the news as well. Like a lot of international students are in Toronto, and they obviously need a place to stay.
I never had tenants like that, so I can't really comment. But it's usually a single tenant, professional, or a young couple, boyfriend, girlfriend, professional, and you have very, very little issues, if anything at all. Versus what my experience was in Hamilton, back in the day, constant money issues, breakups,
among the tenants.
Unfortunately, the tenant profile in Hamilton, a lot of people are on some type of social assistance, and then that's the pool that you have to pick your tenants from. And it was one issue after the other. It's just different. I mean, this is the reality of situation. Again, we're comparing. It's not a fair comparison because you're comparing Hamilton in early 2000s to Toronto of late 2020.
True. And then I'll add to my own experience that that's why I liked student rentals instead, because my tenants were typically rich kids.
Correct.
So they were a better tenant profile than what you would get locally.
Right.
Because your student tenants are typically from out of town.
Yeah.
Their parents had budgeted for this expense, and again, they just they had way more money typically than your typical local.
That's
resident.
right.
Yeah. So back in the day, you and I received a lot of education around why new construction was bad.
Right.
Is that accurate? Is it bad to be a speculator?
No, I don't remember it like that.
Because I almost feel like a speculator when I just buy something and hold it. Almost all my money is made through appreciation.
I mean, you sit in a room, and our listening is different for every person, right? Like we listen to the same thing, and you hear one thing, and I hear something completely different. I remember a guy who was a real estate agent member who did exactly the opposite. he bought pre-construction townhomes, and within 6 months he was able to make $100,000 from 4 townhomes. So, and I'm like, how come I didn't know about that? You know, but I don't necessarily put the blame on the network and say, how come you didn't tell me about this? You know, it's like I said, like real estate is such a vast ocean that, you know, you can only talk about a certain, like you cannot cover everything.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you want to make it
Right.
educational and you want to focus the group onto something actionable. I do remember that there was some type of ridicule of people lining around the corner for condos.
Those people are probably rich.
Right, and it's just you know, it just didn't. I guess it didn't fit the formula of what they were teaching about how to evaluate a property, because you cannot evaluate appreciation. You know, it's just like it happens, it doesn't happen, like nobody knows.
Yeah.
And it is true today.
Yeah.
It's always been true. So what I discovered with experience is that the safe and proper way of investing after a while is not enough for you. And if you're a little bit more adventurous like I am, then you're gonna try to do something else. And then here you're supported because, you know, they're telling you how to do things. And when you start to basically go on your own way, like there is no support. You have to discover things. So you start making mistakes. So student rentals, definitely, I didn't have anybody to talk to. Not in the same way that, you know, the townhouses in Hamilton were the way that they were teaching us how to invest. It was great to get me started, and then I wanted to do something else, and then you want to do something else, and then eventually into a territory that, you know, in the metaphor of a jungle, is like anything could happen. So you take some more risks, but then you have bigger rewards. So
Not always the case.
not always the case. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I, you know, from looking back in the last, you know, 15, 20 years, you know, I'm grateful for everything, and you know, mostly grateful, you know, to myself and doing things the way that I wanted to do them.
It's making headlines these days. Some projects are not being completed. I'm following Hamilton and Burlington stories. A friend of mine, he bought his in August, new construction.
Yeah.
So still not built yet. And then the builder sent them an email and said, "You're canceled because it's gone up too much."
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, then he called and he said, and they negotiated, like, "Oh, okay, if you pay 6% more, then you can keep it." And then he asked me, my thoughts, like, inflation has gone up more than 5-6%, so that doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
But what do you have? Is this an issue in Toronto, or projects not getting built?
When it started happening 2-3 years ago, we were saying, oh, it's the one-offs, it's the builders that are ready to completely destroy their reputation. Because they will not be able to build anything else in the city after that.
But these were small ones, right?
Small ones,
Okay.
Small ones.
So
and
no, like, not like a Tridel or something.
Tridel, Marami, you know, the big companies, the big builders, like, will not be able to. They will never destroy their company, their reputation, by doing something like that.
Yeah.
That's what we were saying 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Now, I don't want to say it's happening more often, but because it's not. It's happened more than in the last 3 years, but you know, look at the craziness of the world that we live in, the prices in the grocery store. You know, last Sunday we went to play golf at Royal Ontario with me and my daughter and my son, 3 of us. We were playing with another family, so I went up to pay for us 3, and it was $357 to play golf for Ontario. And then we spent $85 on 3 burgers, 3 Cokes, 2 waters, and onion rings. $85. So that golf day on Sunday, when we started playing, it was 3 degrees. Okay? There was almost nobody else on the golf course. Almost nobody else. It was just us. So forget about like the summer, the spring specials, the late fall specials. No, they're charging you full price from day one. So $450 for the 3 of us to play golf. Okay? So we end up the golf round. We had a great time. And I called the golf superintendent because he's a friend of mine. And I said, Tony, like, what the hell? I just paid $450 to play golf with me and my 2 kids. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
He goes, buddy, last year I was buying fertilizer a bag for $38.
Yeah.
This year I'm paying $62 for the same bag.
Oh my God.
So translate this now into a builder who needs to build like a big building, and it takes 4 years to do that. It's like, how do you do that? Like, how do you cost calculate your end cost 4 years in advance?
Yeah. Let alone actually get all your supplies that you need.
So like we kind of like have to start believing them. They're not charging you an extra $100,000 because this is what's happening. Not a lot of people, but some people are getting letters from the builders are saying, hey, look, your unit that you bought for $450, it's worth about $650 now. You have 2 options. 1, you cancel. 2, we adjust the price to $550. So basically split the appreciation in half. And people are up in arms because you feel that they're stealing from your appreciation. It may be opportunistic on the builder side, but at the same time, it also may be true is that if they don't get more money, they're not going to be able to finish the project.
Yeah.
And they're going to cancel out. They're going to cancel out anyway, and they're going to resell it the next day to a willing buyer.
Yeah.
So that's the reality.
That's
the reality of doing something long term in inflationary times.
I'm glad I hold a lot of real estate.
How are we doing in time? How are we doing on time?
We're close.
We're close?
It's almost it's 2:15.
I wanted to share
Oh, what do you got?
I wanted to share a couple of things that I kind of like mental notes that I was making to myself, like lessons that I was learning during my time helping the Ukrainian refugees.
Okay.
And these are the 4 lessons that I brought to myself.
You got it down to 4.
Yeah, 4. It's not a complete list, and it's just my list. 1 is you don't have the last moment. 2 is, are you prepared for the real plan B? 3 is most people are not ready mentally, and everything else that stems from that mental preparedness to help you in a meaningful way in a time of personal struggle. And number 4 is snap your fingers, and we're still in medieval times. And I just want to, if you have a few minutes, want to explain this. What I heard from every single person in Ukraine that we were calling, and relatives of relatives, and it's like get out now, get out now. They're like, no, I'm just gonna wait a little bit more. It's like it's not close to us. It's probably not gonna come here. And they are waiting and waiting until the last moment. And I'm thinking, it's like, look at us humans, like we're always waiting until the last moment, and it's like it goes, it's inside our DNA. I'm not gonna go for that medical exam. It's like I'm gonna call my doctor, but not today, next week. Like things that are important for us, for our own safety, for our own life, sometimes like we don't want to deal with that. I'm just gonna go and wait until the last moment. And then and then 1 hour later, you're surrounded by tanks and bombs are falling on you. You don't have the last moment. That is not a luxury that you have. The last moment is not for you. The last moment is, it's not yours. So you always have to, like, whatever you decide, if you decide to stay and fight, like that's your decision. But if you decide to leave because it's war, like, don't wait until the last moment. Like, get out a day early, a week early, a month early is better than the last moment, because so many people got stuck. For example, one of our friends here in Toronto, we've been begging her to get her mom out of Kherson and her sister. And she's like, oh, they don't want to go. And Natalia was like, let me call them. We have an apartment ready for them. We have safety for them. They just have to come. Like, we got everything for them. And they're like, oh, no, they're okay. They'll be okay. They'll be okay. And her sister got killed 2 days ago. It's just, this is real. Are you prepared for the real plan B? You know, because we talk about like how prepared we are. This goes to, again, real estate and holdings and money and, you know, personal wealth. And you see these people crossing the border with, you know, a mother with 2 kids and just a small carry-on and a backpack. That's it. That's all. This and 25 euros in their pocket. That's all they got. And then a week later, the war really moves to their area, and the apartment is destroyed. The car is destroyed. Husband is killed. You have nothing. You have nothing to go back to. You have nothing. You have nothing. You have nothing. You have nothing. Like, how do you go back from that? How do you? And people do. But the point is, like, you know, because, you know, we're building something, right? You're building a real estate portfolio. You're building your life. You're doing it because you want safety. That's what you want. You want safety. You want easier life. You want more freedom for you, for your kids. Now, and this is why, also back to real estate, this is why a lot of people are coming to Canada, because Canada is seen as this almost like island of safety. We're protected by 2 oceans, United States and the North Pole. We're an island, a very big island, but we're an island of safety. Like, you cannot get to Canada unless, you cannot come to Canada unless you're approved. It's very different. Hard. It's very different than Europe.
Yes.
You can walk to Europe from Afghanistan. People do today. And open up a map and see how far Afghanistan is from Europe. Mm-hmm. You can walk to Europe from India. You can walk from Europe from China. You can walk to Europe you can walk. You know, you can walk to Canada. Right. So we are protected, and this is why people are coming here. This is why real estate here just keeps on going up, and people from all over the world, they want to be here, and because it's nice, it's new, it's infrastructure. This is why the prices are where they are. And so what is the real plan B for people? That's a very, very difficult question. I don't have the answer, because I'm thinking in my mind is like, how do you get prepared? How do you make sure that what you have, or most of it, or some of it, will be available to you in a time of disaster? Disaster planning, that's what we're talking about here, right? Different scenarios. I don't have an idea. I mean, I have some ideas, but so far nothing's working, right? I was thinking, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna go and buy a piece of land somewhere so I can grow things, and then I'm gonna buy a bunch of like arms, you know, machine guns. And I'm thinking, it's like, yeah, I don't think so. If this is really valuable and people are hungry all over around me, like, who would be the next victim? It would be me. Right? So what do you take from this life in a time of disaster? What I'm also finding through our, you know, fundraising work, but also with the Ukrainian community and the Ukrainian refugees, and the dynamics between people that I see, is how, you know, most of us, I think, in the back of my mind, in the back of our minds, like you're always thinking that somebody else is there to help you. And then in a time of real need, like you find out that they will give you just a little bit more time that they give their Facebook feed. Like they'll scroll through you, they'll probably pay attention to you for a second or a minute or a day, and then everybody goes on with their life. And that's how we are, right? So like know that most people mentally and in many other ways are not going to be able to help you or pay attention to you in a time of personal struggle.
Right.
So again, help yourself before other people help you. And the last thing is like we're still in medieval times. Nothing's changed. Like Molotov cocktails and people killing each other and like it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal what we are still capable of doing to each other, and it's it all goes through our belief system. You know, how we see each other as enemies, and how we're still making somebody else as wrong on something, and then that spins into all kinds of stories and makes a monster out of you. And you know, monsters and victims, like medieval stupidity in the middle of Europe. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But at the same time, you know, I flew back to Toronto. We landed in Toronto, got into a taxi, and I'm thinking like, this is nice. Wide roads, clean, organized, planned. Like when you, like, because we were landing during a daytime, so I took a really nice video of the plane approaching Toronto and making a turn over Toronto, and you see everything like manicured, like everything is like nice. And I'm like, it hit me, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get why people want to come here, even though our prices are very expensive, and even though, you know, life is not easy sometimes for a lot of people, and even though like the weekend comes and like, what are we going to do? And there's nothing to do really. Like Muskoka is far, this, that. Like when you're in Europe, things are so much closer and so many interesting things to do that I miss here. But at the same time, like working here, living here, creating life here for us, for clients, for everybody else, it's very rewarding. It's very easy and easier, and yeah, it's fantastic.
I think we'll leave it there. Thank you, Todor, for coming in.
My pleasure.
Glad you're safe. And yeah, thanks. Oh, before we go away, tell us about your charity. Where can people find out about it?
So we have a GoFundMe campaign on GoFundMe, and it's Ukrainian Humanitarian Emergency Relief. It's a non-profit. Every single cent of every single dollar goes directly from the bank directly into medicine or food or transportation or, you know, items for the daily life of those refugees that need it in Varna, Bulgaria. We already we have raised about $68,000 so far. We spent pretty much all of it. We are now in a big drive to raise more money. And as soon as we do, we open up a school for Ukrainian kids. We're going to open up a donation center in Varna so people can donate clothing and all kinds of stuff. So we're still doing a lot of work. I'm planning to go back in about, I don't know, it's going to be anytime between 10 days from now and a month from now. And yeah, that's entirely what I'm focusing on right now.
And then where can people follow?
But I also have to say that that you don't wake up one day and you are like that, right? I mean, I've watched you with your brigade for the Thanksgiving dinners, like the pictures with the tables and all the preparations, like these things inspire you. They are seeds that are planted in they were planted in my mind, and then you watch other things, and then it's like, okay, I want to do this and I want to do that, but now I'm busy with this, and then all of a sudden, boom. So I didn't just, like, I'm the product, and I think we all are the product of the people that we're surrounded. So thank you for the great work that you've been doing for years now, collecting, donating, raising, helping.
Mm-hmm.
You are my example. You are the leader that I'm following.
There are many people before me.
That's right.
And then to add to your point about like you have to do it for yourself, we pivoted away from fundraising and focusing more on this. In our experience, it was easier just to work on our businesses, to create more value, make more money for the business, and then we were able to donate. Right, that was an easier path than fundraising, in our experience.
That is that is an amazing point, because again, I'm new to fundraising.
It's hard.
I'm not even thinking that I'm in fundraising. I'm not in fundraising. It's
Kinda
just
are.
that I was able to go to the bank and put $30,000 on the day we left, and we said, like, we're going with our money, and then people started like, okay, can I contribute, and started sending us e-transfers. And then a friend of mine says, like, oh, Uliana, she says, like, I can create a GoFundMe page for you. I'm like, okay. And she did all of the work. Like, I actually logged on to the GoFundMe campaign for the first time 2 days ago after we came back. The time when we were there, I had no time. So she was managing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was all based on trust, and still is. Funny enough, I called a friend of mine who's the president of a hospital foundation yesterday, and I said to her, I says, like, how do I grow this bigger? How do I do this in a much bigger way? Like, I'm talking about, like, we have a goal to reach $100,000 now with this campaign, but then my next immediate goal is $1 million, and then the goal after that would be like $10 million, right? I'm thinking, it's like, okay, this is crazy now. So fundraising is a job, and it's not a job I want to have. I don't want to be seen as a fundraiser. I just want to help. So I appeal to people to help, and with the help with people like yourself and so many other individuals that contributed, we can make the lives of few people a little better. But at some point, like, you are right, like, at some point I have to come back from all of this and focus on me, my work, my family, because let me just say, I hope this war ends very soon.
I think we all would like that.
Yeah.
And then where can people follow you on social media for your personal journey?
I don't have the links. Instagram, I can send that to you if you can include it somehow. Instagram is Todor _CT Realty Point Boss. That's Instagram. That's my new Instagram before I hacked.
What about your Facebook? Your Facebook's easier.
Todor Yordanov. Todor Yordanov.
And I'll have all the links in the show
There's
notes.
few of us with the same name, but they'll recognize me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I noticed it was largely the real estate community that supported you as well. Well, like Susan White was the one that informed me, like yo, Todor left the country, and like, what? He's in Ukraine? No, he's not in Ukraine. He's on his way over, and I don't know, he's actually there right now.
It is true. Yeah. Like, a lot of people support us, and it was very heartwarming to see that. It was a great feeling. It was like, you know what, like I'm gonna say this, and I don't know if it's gonna sound appropriate or not, but it's a great feeling to spend somebody else's money on something that matters, and you have full control of that. Like, not full control in terms of like you're controlling it, but you are the decision maker. And I was not even the decision maker. Like, it's the moment that decides. Like, we have a woman that came from Mariupol, with her elderly father, and his blood pressure is like, the guy is like about to have a stroke, like so high, because they lived in a basement for 3 weeks. And she says, like, when a basement, like moldy and wet basement with no food or just bread. And after 3 weeks, when they got out, and it was a night, and she says, we've never seen a night sky like this. It was full of stars, because everything was destroyed and there was no light pollution. Like, there was no light on the street, so you see the sky. And anyway, they arrived, and the guy doesn't have blood pressure monitored. He doesn't have blood pressure medication. She doesn't have any clothes, like nothing like that. So we just go and buy these things. You know, it's like, some of it is my money, some of it is like, most of it is money from people like you. You know, and it's to be able to do that for another person, completely outside of any official organization, or like, it's not even my job, and I don't even know how to do it, and I don't know even how to do it properly. But like, how do you do it properly? You have a human in front of you, and they need something, and you can buy it, so you just go and buy it and say, here, that's for you. That's all.
Amazing your work, Todor. Hope there's more people out there like you.
Thank you, Erwin.
Thanks again for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/podcast to register for our next class. I publish an episode here every week, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing, register for our next free virtual training class at investortraining.ca/podcast. Again, thanks for listening to the show. Talk to you next week.